property right to water. It says someone has the right to own water. Who's that man? Am I a man not enough to own water? What's wrong with me?
Sorry?
What was the tragedy?
What have I just explained to you? It's that difficult.
But what's what it's in?
Ba interview ba ne ba le mo jarteng ya bona ba gana gore ba kene ba foster gore ba kene maponisa na le teng go seng ana asile a tshwara batho ba le maditse le nkgono wa kwa ntlong e nkgono wa kwa ntlong there's nothing changed. Nothing changed. Come to my house and then enter here.
So do you think this has to do with privatization?
Yes. Yes, it is. They're selling all the companies and then they're making money. The people hasn't got place to work. They don't have work. They are staying here. They are naughty, because of this hunger. No food, no nothing. But the food is going to another countries. The clothes is to the another countries. Here we don't get nothing.
Okay, boy.
In water, in electricity, and in some aspects of transport, there's been a substantial shift towards the private sector. I don't think that has much to do with the World Bank. It has to do much more with technological considerations and a general environment of people have been seeing successes in around the world. There are a couple of responses to why the critics are saying that the World Bank is always pushing privatization. One is, I think critics will, by definition, always find something to blame the World Bank for. I think that some of these critics just as much will oppose any kind of privatization, whether or not it helps poor people. And we have to be aware of that as well, that there are some privatizations that actually help poor people. And we will unashamedly support those, and we will defend those, even though our critics will say, oh, the World Bank is pushing privatization.
I think the reason was basically ideological. And there were, of course, some interests that there was money to be made in the process of privatization. For instance, part of the privatization was that there were many water concessions. The companies that provided water to people, and those were natural monopolies. That is to say that there's only one firm that provides that. When you privatize, you can sometimes raise the price, generate enormous amount of profits. And so there were a few companies that saw the profit opportunity, pushed the IMF, the World Bank, to push these privatization initiatives.
Yo considero que el Banco Mundial utilizó a Bolivia como una especie de pequeño laboratorio, un conejillo de Indias, un experimento. Yo creo que el Banco Mundial y las transnacionales tienen un concepto totalmente equivocado de nuestro pueblo. Piensan que somos un pueblo miserable, que no tiene dinero para dar solución a sus problemas, y piensan que somos un pueblo ignorante, que no sabe conservar y preservar el agua. El gobierno durante el conflicto procedió a la detención de una gran mayoría de los líderes sindicales y los portavoces de la coordinadora, pero la intención del gobierno no solamente era detener, confinar a varios de nosotros, sino eliminarnos físicamente.
¡Miren lo que me están golpeando! ¡Carajo, no! ¿Por qué? ¡Ahora cuidado que me golpean!
El ejército salió con francotiradores vestidos de militar o vestidos de civil, y en estas protestas murió un joven, Víctor Hugo Daza, de 16 años, y fueron heridos más de 30 jóvenes y mujeres producto de estos francotiradores.
Is delayed by approximately 10 minutes due to a broken down train at London Bridge. Please listen for further announcements. I'm very sorry.
This is not cheap. We're a big beneficiary. This is where a lot of money goes. The government gives money to the private companies to run a bit of service, but we end up with new uniforms. So it's the company Wensum supplies to the Queen, and they get the money. So we don't get bit of service, we get into new uniforms. Very important. Yes.
They certainly uniform manufacturers have done very well, because there's over 20 different companies now instead of just one. And then I think it was a lot of pot luck. If you was lucky enough to be at a depot that went to one of the companies that were good, then you did quite well. Unfortunately, we ended up with one of the worst ones, so we felt it more than others, really.
When the Conservatives initially privatised the railways, they broke it up and they put the track and signal and property side of it to a company called Railtrack. The operation of the trains, which is running the passenger services, were let out on franchises, but the responsibility for maintaining the infrastructure lay with Railtrack. And Railtrack would then charge the private franchises an access charge to use the infrastructure. And unfortunately, Railtrack viewed themselves as, well, they had shareholders, they had a responsibility in law to their shareholders, and that was where it ended. They didn't have a responsibility to the railways. Railtrack didn't actually have any staff to speak of, because it was just contractors who would contract other people, would contract contractors, and it almost became a no questions asked system. You know, we don't care how you do the job as long as you do it and you do it cheap. What was happening is the job wasn't being done at all until we had the watershed of Hatfield.